Imagine being betrayed by your own family. Not a stranger, not by a stalker, but your own cousin. Because that's exactly what happened to Tracy Lynn Brown. And the details of this case are so disturbing that even the killer eventually admitted he deserved to die. This is the case of James Osgood. On October 18th, 2010, Tracy Lynn Brown failed to show up for work. At first, it may not have seemed unusual, but as concern grew, people began looking for her. When Tracy's body was discovered inside her Alabama home, investigators quickly realized they weren't dealing with a normal homicide. They were looking at something far more horrific. What detectives would eventually uncover sounded less like reality and more like a horror movie. According to prosecutors, James Osgood and his girlfriend Tonya Vandyke had become obsessed with violent fantasies. Not fantasies about robbing someone, not fantasies about getting revenge, fantasies about kidnapping, torturing, and assaulting another human being. And then they allegedly decided to make those fantasies real. The victim they chose was Tracy Brown. What makes this case even more chilling is that Tonya Vandyke was Tracy's cousin. Think about that. The person who should have been protecting her instead helped lure her into a deadly trap. According to court records, Tracy spent time with Osgood and Vandyke before returning home. Once inside the residence, the situation turned into a nightmare. Prosecutors said Tracy was assaulted by the pair, but the violence didn't stop there. Court documents describe an extended attack that ended with Tracy pleading for mercy before her throat was cut. The brutality of the crime shocked even experienced investigators. And what happened next may be the most disturbing part of all. James Osgood didn't spend years denying involvement. He eventually confessed. Not only did he admit to participating in the crime, but investigators said he provided detailed information about how the murder had been planned and carried out. For prosecutors, the confession was devastating evidence. For Tracy's family, it was confirmed the worst possible reality. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't self-defense. This wasn't a spontaneous argument that spiraled out of control. According to investigators, this was something that had been discussed and planned beforehand. A jury convicted James Osgood of capital murder. Tonya Vandyke received life in prison without parole for her role in the crime. Most death row inmates spend decades fighting to avoid execution. Appeal after appeal, motion after motion, challenge after challenge, but James Osgood was different. Years later, he made a decision that stunned many people following the case. He voluntarily stopped fighting. He dropped his appeals, and he asked the state to carry out his death sentence. Why? Because he said he was guilty. He said he deserved the punishment, and he reportedly believed in an eye for an eye. That is extraordinarily rare. Most death row inmates maintain their innocence or continue challenging their convictions until the very end. Osgood did the opposite. He accepted the responsibility. In fact, one of the most shocking aspects of this case is that even after years on death row, he never tried to portray himself as the victim. He openly acknowledged what he had done. Then came April 24th, 2025. After spending more than a decade on death row, James